Be not afraid of being in the minority. Be not afraid of being ostracized or discriminated against, because you will face opposition.
Abortion does not help women, just lives destroyed by abortion. So you want to talk about supporting women, it's not having them kill their own babies.
Right now, there is a young woman on her way to an abortion clinic. By the time that young woman heard my story, she chose life for her little girl. And it was the words, "I regret my abortion."
So people are dying from COVID-19, people are dying from all kinds of ailments, but we're killing babies in the womb.
I've been reading in the data that there's been a lot of doctors who are doing euthanasia who are now saying, oh, well, we have to open up the rules even more because we're getting all these requests from people who are having fear of COVID-19.
Our conscience is the heart of everything we do and every good decision. We're willing to put ourselves out there, but we actually can't do our best job, serve our patients' best interests if we don't have our conscience.
Prime Minister Trudeau, he is the most pro-abortion Prime Minister we've ever had. He seems to thrive on everything and anything that has to do with tearing down traditional family and morals.
Be not afraid to stand up for the truth, because it is absolutely worth it, and that's what gives life meaning, is defending those who are weak and vulnerable. Be not afraid of being courageous enough to stand for those who have no one else to stand for them.
And hello and welcome to Be Not Afraid, EWTN Canada's pro-life special for 2020. I'm your host, Doug Keck. EWTN, you know, with our outreach of 145 countries and territories, including, of course, our channel in Canada, works hard to spread the pro-life message around the world. Each year, we're proud to bring you the March for Life from Washington, D.C., the Walk for Life West Coast from San Francisco, One Life LA, and for the past several years, of course, the National March for Life from Ottawa, Canada. You know, if you'd like to check out all of our pro-life resources and programming, go to EWTN.com/pro-life. You can also go to the website to find out how you can view EWTN in your area. Just simply click on the TV at the top of the page and then the channel finder. Of course, you can always watch us on the internet, you know, on YouTube, on our EWTN app, and on our video on demand channel. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to postpone our EWTN Family Celebration this year, which we were holding in Toronto. But stay tuned for those in Canada for a new date in 2021. We'll be announcing that soon. We look forward to seeing you then. Today is May 14th, the day of infamy in Canada, the day in which Parliament decided to remove legal protection for the unborn child. The year was 1969. 51 years of abortion on demand in Canada has resulted in more than 4 million abortions. Now, for the past 22 years, concerned Canadians have marked this day by gathering in the nation's capital for the annual March for Life. And EWTN has been very pleased to cover this momentous event for many, many years now. However, due to the pandemic and government restrictions on public gatherings, organizers had to cancel the march in Ottawa. Instead, they've taken the March for Life online for an entire week of events, including this pro-life special right here on EWTN Canada. Be not afraid. This is the theme of this year's march, with Canada having the dubious distinction of the country, believe it or not, with the most permissive abortion criteria in the world. It's time for all Christians to rise up and be courageous in the protection of society's most vulnerable. That's what Mother Angelica would say. Join me today as a number of our champions from the pro-life movement in Canada join us for this program. Many of you will be familiar with our first panelist, been featured on many EWTN programs, Canada's most recognizable expert in the defense of life. She's given almost 1,000 pro-life presentations across North America, around the world, and was recently a presenter at Talks at Google, speaking on abortion at Google headquarters in California. Stephanie's ministry, Love Unleashes Life. Welcome, Stephanie Gray. Great to have you.
Great to be here.
Now, our next panelist is no stranger to EWTN. He's a filmmaker, international speaker on all things faith and family. His recent film is Vulnerable, The Euthanasia Deception, very, very popular. Also, Fatal Flaws, Legalizing Assisted Death, also very popular. Have screened internationally, have changed public discourse on euthanasia and assisted suicide around the world. Been featured on EWTN Live. Our good friend and many times the MC at this event is Kevin Dunn. Welcome, Kevin. Great to see you.
Good to be with you, Doug.
And finally, representing the Campaign for Life Coalition, who are the actual organizers of the Canadian National March for Life, is Matthew Wojciechowski. And Matt is a community organizer and public speaker and oversees CLC's international efforts at the United Nations. That must be a tough job. He and his wife just had their fourth son. Congratulations, and welcome, Matt, to the program.
Thanks for having me, Doug.
So let's get each of yours take on this year's theme, Be Not Afraid. Can you speak to the theme as it relates to your various ministries? First up, Stephanie, you.
Sure. So when we talk about what is fear? Fear is an emotion that is a negative emotion that can cause us to do things we shouldn't do or not do things that we should do. And as it relates to the abortion issue, unfortunately, because a woman in a crisis pregnancy may be afraid, she may end the life of her child. Because a physician or another medical professional is afraid of how their colleagues or the medical bodies will react to pro-life decisions they make, they may refuse to act in a pro-life manner. And so we need to be not afraid. How do we be not afraid? We trust that there is a power larger than us, stronger than us, that can work all things for good. And when we think this is impossible, I don't know how it will work out, God himself can turn all things for good. And so what we need is to have love. And perfect love, as the scriptures say, casts out all fear. And so we need to trust that because God loves us, he will make a path. As Moses led the Israelites through the Red Sea and parted the waters, God will make a path. And if we believe in that, then we should be not afraid.
Very good. Thank you, Stephanie. Now, Matt, your take.
Well, a few months ago when we were discussing the theme, what theme we would go with, we wanted Canadians to know that as pro-lifers, we are all in this together. And it's becoming increasingly harder and harder to speak the truth with a capital T in today's culture. There's this culture of fear, of being rejected, stigmatized, and worse, persecuted. And I mean, Christians have been persecuted ever since the beginning, and they continue to be persecuted all around the world. I think the words, be not afraid, are words that help us to live out the gospel of life. They are words of hope. They are words of courage. And we want people to know that we got this. Turn to God for courage, and if we remain faithful, he will take care of the rest.
Very good. And finally, Kevin, your thoughts.
Man, are we living in times of perceived, fear, with this pandemic. But even before that, on both sides, my ministry focuses on becoming a prophet of hope, a prophet of hope in these times, because we need this desire to go out and be prophets of hope, to lose that sense of fear, because whether we're on the abortion end of the scale or euthanasia, we've got this culture of abandonment of the child, abandonment of the woman in a crisis pregnancy center. Down here on the euthanasia, and we've got abandonment of the individual, or worse, abandonment of ourselves. We need now to reach out to those people, to be not afraid, to reach out to those people in our lives who need it. Become a prophet of hope in the lives of those around us. Be not afraid. It's as simple as picking up the phone and calling someone who needs it.
Really, St. John Paul II, you hear, be not afraid. That just rings so true. And I know at least one of you, I think Matthew has his picture behind him on the wall there. So very, very important, obviously, to Mother Angelica and the mission of EWTN. Kevin, if you would put that filmmaker hat of yours that you keep back there for today's program. I understand you brought some interviews that you pre-shot for the program. Why don't you give us an idea what's that about?
Yeah, well, normally we would be on the Hill, as you mentioned, with the great help of EWTN, who's been so stalwart and faithful to the pro-life cause in Canada, bringing us the special every year. Normally we'd be on the Hill interviewing people for like 4 or 5 hours, and these are top, wonderful pro-life stalwart champions, but we can't do that this year. So we thought, in conjunction with you good folks, that I would sit down with a few key champions of the pro-life cause outside of the ones here with us on the panel today, and ask their perspectives on various issues. So Jeff Gunderson is going to talk a little bit about the politics of abortion. Very, very interesting, especially in this world of pandemic that we have. Laura Clausen from Choice for Two, wonderful pro-life advocate, making international waves and changing hearts and minds. Angelina Steenstra from Silent No More Awareness. The power of sharing our brokenness as a way of healing those out there who are suffering with the effects of abortion. Angelina. Josie Lutke, who's Campaign Life's youth coordinator. Amazing work, both on the streets and university, changing hearts and minds with our young people. Alex Schattenberg from the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition, talking about one of our biggest concerns here in Canada, which is medical aid in dying, they call it, and the expansion of those laws. And lastly, Dr. Ramona Coelho. Dr. Ramona is a family physician, and she is right up there speaking about conscience rights, which are a huge issue here in Canada, especially in Ontario, where conscience rights, the ability for doctors to use their conscience when it comes to people asking for euthanasia or abortion, and having to refer or risk losing their license. So many great topics, many great people to speak with today.
Sounds good. Well, let's get to it. Let's get to our first topic. Being courageous in the fight requires digging into the issue on a worldly level. And in Canada, the politics of abortion can be felt at the highest levels of government. In this segment, our own Kevin Dunn talks with Campaign Life Coalition President Jeff Gunderson, as he mentioned, on those politics of abortion. Let's take a look.
So Jeff, here we are in the midst of this crazy pandemic when they're talking about, essential services is the only thing. And yet I understand in Ontario, at least, abortion is considered an essential service. What do you say to that?
Wide open across the nation as far as we know. Of course, that's just absurd. It just goes to show you how deep the abortion mentality is in Canada, and that somehow the killing of preborn children in their mother's wombs trumps any pandemic. I think that if you took a mic out in the street and said, abortions, they're still allowing abortions to go on during this pandemic, and you, especially if you met a senior on the street and said, well, I had to put off my hip surgery for 3 months, or I had to put off my heart surgery for 6 months. How many people have died in Canada waiting for a heart surgery? I heard it the other day, 25 or so. Then that could just be Ontario for all I know. So people are dying from COVID-19, people are dying from all kinds of ailments, but we're killing babies in the womb while all this is going on. So it's important, and that's why we march every year, because it doesn't matter whether there's a pandemic or not. If you're killing babies in the womb, something's wrong. We have to be there to witness to that.
Is it politically motivated? Like why such a drive? Even during all these crazy times, we still see money going overseas. We still see a very pro-abortive ethos, if you will, in this country. And what are you? I mean, you're on the front lines of this. You must see what's happening, and what's being done to kind of thwart that.
It just defies all logic. Prime Minister Trudeau is, he is the most pro-abortion prime minister we've ever had. He seems to thrive on everything and anything that has to do with tearing down traditional family and morals. So I don't even know if it's political. I mean, it's evil. It's just evil.
Will we ever see a pro-life prime minister in this country?
Yes, we will have a pro-life prime minister in this country someday. For the most part, we are persona non grata in both provincial and federal parties. The federal party actually has an edict that no pro-lifer can run for the party. That came out on the eve of the March for Life 2 or 3 years ago. But we have in the party currently, we have in the Conservative Party of Canada approximately 60% who are leaning towards pro-life. Doesn't mean that they're 100% pro-life, but they would like to see some restriction on abortion. There's a good core of Conservative Party members who want to restrict abortion, period, at all costs, for all reasons.
So why is it so hard then if we have this majority?
That's a very good question. I was hoping you weren't going to ask it, but we still have, as much as the grassroots need to engage, how important it is for the grassroots to engage, and that we need to double our numbers. As important as that is, we also have to look at the top of the party. We call it often the elites of the party, and they're the ones that have a lot of influence, and they're the ones who are afraid. For some reason, they think that a pro-life social conservative can't win an election. It's nonsense. Our candidates are just like you and I, pro-life, pro-family, traditional conservative people, church-going people, are well-rounded and make excellent politicians. They make excellent volunteers for politicians, and we also do most of the donating for the party. There is nothing wrong with having a pro-life, pro-traditional family leader running for election to run for the Prime Minister office. Nothing wrong with that, and Canadians have no problem with that. It's how it is portrayed. How do you show your allegiance to the Canadian voters? And sure, if you're really cranky and you're spewing all kinds of things that are very controversial, if the media don't like it, they're going to jump all over it. They're going to accuse you of all kinds of things, and then the higher ups start to get nervous and think, oh, gee, maybe we should pull that candidate. Maybe we should tell him or her to shut up. Or the fact is, a good, well-rounded pro-life candidate can make it as a prime minister in this country, no problem.
So Matt, does Jeff paint a realistic picture in your mind?
Because he's my boss. But it's clearly an uphill battle in Canada. It's always been. But the pro-life movement in Canada, at its core, is a grassroots-led movement that does not give up. And when you look at our internal numbers at Campaign Life Coalition, we've been involved in elections, nominations for almost 40 years, for more than 40 years. And we know that pro-lifers are the most engaged in the political process out of more than any other voting bloc. We have people who become party members, they donate, they volunteer on campaigns, and most importantly, they always show up to vote. But in order to earn our vote, candidates really need to speak with conviction on the life and family issues. So pro-life Canadians, I think, are very hungry for political leaders who will represent them, represent traditional family values, who will stand up for life. And I will just close on this. A former Liberal MP, member of Parliament, once told me that if pro-lifers don't get involved in the political process, then we allow those who do get involved make all the decisions. Pro-lifers need to remain engaged. And in politics, I guess most of the battle is just showing up.
Right. Well said. Stephanie, now in your case, you've been at this quite a while, from your days at the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform to speaking internationally. Could someone like a Stephanie Gray run for office, and what would be the biggest obstacle to someone doing that in Canada?
Well, I think someone who kind of has taken the activist style that I have could successfully run, but a couple things would be significant to consider. The first is the need to run in an area where they are more likely to succeed in being elected. Secondly, they need to make sure they are surrounded by a team of people and a party that will support what they're saying and what they're doing. Because, as you know, speaking truth is going to result in a lot of resistance. And if you have have to fight internally and you have to fight externally, you are going to be exhausting yourself. So it's very important that when people are going to have the courage of their convictions, when they are going to run to be representatives in society as public representatives, it's very important that they be surrounded by people who support them in being the most winsome, articulate, and persuasive representatives they can be, so that they can then take on the culture as a team.
Speaking of women, Kevin, your next interview is with someone who really understands what women really need when it comes to the abortion issue. Can you tell us a little bit about Laura Clausen?
Yeah, Laura, she's not only an activist and an advocate, she's also an actor, and she does an amazing job. She's an actress, and she does an amazing job of creating these viral videos. Many of you might be familiar with the magical birth canal one, which was probably the one that really took on. It had a baby, a real baby kind of being held up with this imaginary birth canal, and not a baby, real baby with human rights. It was an amazing kind of farcical look, but one that really took hold and was viewed millions upon millions of times all around the world. She's incredible. She not only makes these videos, but she's also out there on the front lines.
Great. Let's hear what she has to say.
This woman in the UK, because now we have a worldwide reach. So we've been helping women all over the world, which is neat that we can actually do that. And she was raped and had considered abortion, but then decided against it. And so we were helping her look for adoption information because that's, she thought that she would place the baby with an adoptive family. And really had my eyes opened as to how crazy the adoption system is in the UK, but that aside, throughout the whole process, she then came to the decision that she was going to keep her baby. And so, but she didn't have anything. Her family was not supportive of her having a child out of rape. They basically cut her off, so she was all by herself. And so we made her a registry and posted it, and it got, bought out like that. And she had her baby a couple weeks ago, just before this lockdown. She had a C-section. And then the cool thing about when we connect with women and we make them these registries, that's not the end. Like, we keep in touch with all of them. We have support groups. And so throughout the lockdown, we heard from her that her washing machine had broken. And so, she just had a C-section. She's all alone in her apartment with a newborn, and she shouldn't be hand washing clothing. So we just thought, since we're so pro-birth, what can we do to help her? So we set up a GoFundMe for a washing machine, of all things, and people funded it immediately, and we set, it's installed. She's got her washing machine there. So it's just neat that we're able to help women kind of whatever they need. Yeah.
Would you say that, what are the real needs of the women you encounter? Is it this simple? Is it this simple that you're talking about? Or, what does it really come down to when it comes to when you encounter these women? What are the needs?
I think it's number one, God. Number two, the truth. They're not, in this day and age, they're not actually being told that abortion is wrong and that it is murder, and that all the truth about it. They're actually not being told that. So that's huge. And then support. The actual real practical support of getting them stuff, and then also emotional support.
What do you say to people who say, Laura, you're too hardcore? Like, you constantly are talking about abortion is murder, abortion is murder. You have to soften your approach. Are there people out there that say that to you, first of all? And what is your response?
I get messages about that every day, a lot of them. I think that's how I used to do things. When I started Choice for Two, that was how I thought. That's how you do the pro-life thing. You're not gonna be outwardly, obviously anti-abortion. You're almost gonna come in there and come alongside them and here are your three options, and I'm gonna sort of push you away from this abortion option, but I'm not gonna actually say it's bad or anything like that. But I was not seeing the results that I wanted from that. Women were still going off and having abortions because I wasn't straight up saying it's murder, let's not be doing this. So I've completely switched on how I talk about abortion and to women, and the results are good. The results are amazing. Most of the women that we're talking to are canceling their abortion appointments. So if that wasn't happening and I wasn't seeing that, then I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, right? But I'm seeing the results, and I'm seeing, I'm getting the baby pictures, so I know that this is working.
What about the armchair quarterbacks, maybe somebody who's not involved in a crisis pregnancy, that are just seeing what you're doing online, and they're vehemently opposed to your view? Have you seen a shift in attitude with, say, the general public?
Yeah. It's been really neat. And I'm not sure if you saw, I posted just a couple weeks ago about a woman who privately messaged me, and she's someone who's very involved in the pro-choice movement. For years, she has been a clinic escort, she's been on TV, she's led rallies for abortion rights, like someone really up there. And she messaged me saying, I've done a 180, I'm now against abortion. She's come to see the truth. She also became a Christian. And so she wrote me this whole message about her story, and I said, well, why don't I post it anonymously, just so you can see the response that you're gonna get from our side of the movement. And you're gonna be met with love, and you're gonna be met with welcoming arms. And she was like, okay, like she didn't really believe that would happen. Posted it, tons of messages from people, thank you, you're doing welcome, we love you. And she wrote me back saying she's never had this kind of love from the pro-choice movement. She's never experienced that, which I was like, of course you haven't. Your whole movement is based on killing people. Like, it's not very loving. So if she comes out with her story publicly, that's going to be an amazing testimony.
There might be people watching today who are undecided or maybe opposed to what you're talking about, that this isn't supporting women. We should be supporting women by giving them choice. What would you say?
Well, choice. I mean, we're talking about killing people. That shouldn't be a choice. Also, abortion does not help women. Like, that's the other side of things that we do, is we connect with post-abortive women who are suicidal, self-harming, alcoholics, drug addicts, like just lives destroyed by abortion. So you want to talk about supporting women, it's not having them kill their own babies. It's helping them to choose life and move on from there.
Wow. Stephanie, is honesty the best tactic when dealing with women in crisis in your experience?
Absolutely, because honesty involves the truth, and we know that the truth will set people free. I think Laura has made a powerful statement when she talks about the fruits, and we will know by the fruits of something. And by speaking truth in love, by certainly talking about what abortion is, but then walking alongside that woman in crisis, as she does so beautifully with her outreach, is proof that it is possible to win hearts as well as win minds. I think, for example, of the Sisters of Life, who journey with women through unplanned pregnancies. And they will, often say, when people talk about an unplanned pregnancy, there's parenting as an option, and they describe it beautifully. They will talk about adoption as an option and describe it beautifully. And then they will make the point, some people say that abortion is a third option, and then they explain why it's not a valid option, why it isn't really a third option. And I think that is the way to go. We should not make abortion sound like it is equal to parenting or adoption when we know it isn't, because it dismembers, decapitates, and disembowels the body of a baby. That is never a valid option.
Right. Well put. Now, in your case, Matt, you've seen a lot of advocacy groups come and go over the years, I'm sure. What's different about Choice 4-2 and Laura's work, in your opinion?
Well, what I really love about Laura's ministry is that she meets women where they're at. First of all, she offers them the truth, first and foremost, unapologetically. And then she looks at their needs and makes it happen by mobilizing people all around the world who come to the woman's rescue. It's almost like a 2.0 version of sidewalk counseling. When God willing, a day comes where when laws are changed and there is a law that protects all human life from the time of conception until natural death, women will still find themselves in crisis, with crisis pregnancies. They will still be forced to have abortions. They will be coerced to do so by their boyfriends or husbands or whatnot. And I think what Choice 4-2 is doing, and will probably continue to do, is remove that crisis element from these pregnancies by offering support, bringing together people, who are always willing to help out. It is truly a pro-life, pro-woman, and pro-child ministry.
Right, definitely. Speaking of truth and love. Now, Kevin, as a media person, these viral videos she's put together must be right up your alley.
Well, yeah, I guess so. It's amazing what happens when we share these stories online. People really come to a deeper knowledge of what these issues are about, because we hear so much from the media, and so much from one side that we never really get a chance to hear. We never really get a chance to hear the truth, and that's why programs like this is why Laura's work is so important. And it really comes down right now, I think, to sharing our brokenness, to sharing these stories online. You know, this next clip that I brought with me is from Angelina Steenstra. Angelina is with Silent No More Awareness. She shares her story of abortion and the effects, the lifelong effects of abortion. And she's been doing this for a number of years, and the hearts that have been changed by her story are numerous. And so she's going to tell us her story in this next clip.
So why don't we just go right ahead and take a look at that clip.
Well, at the tender age of 15, I underwent a surgical abortion that ended the life of my first child, who was approximately 10, 11, 12 weeks gestation. So it's a very personal experience for me, the regret of abortion. And not just first the regret of the loss of my first child, who I would later come to name Sarah Elizabeth, but also the loss of my fertility, and subsequent to the loss through abortion, I lost a child through an ectopic pregnancy, and then I lost my fertility as well.
Angelina, this is truly a gift for people who hear it, who have never heard the story before, or this side of the whole regret side. Can you speak to a particular story or a person that you've spoken to over the years that has kind of made you feel, yes, what I'm doing is very important, speaking this story, speaking this part of my life?
Well, immediately what comes to mind is one morning, I was speaking at a school in Toronto, and a young man was in the class that morning who'd been absent for a week, and he happened to be back at school. And after I shared my testimony, he went to the teacher who had made it possible for me to be there and said, right now there is a young woman on her way to an abortion clinic downtown. And the teacher said to me, what should I tell him? I said, just tell her not to do it. So he promptly called her. She got off the subway, they met, and by 3:30 that afternoon, because of another woman who was also at the school that day, Debbie Fisher, who was with Silent No More Awareness Campaign, by the time that young woman heard my story and Debbie's story, she chose life for her little girl. And a couple of years later, a year later, she was at the March for Life holding her baby. And it was the words, I regret my abortion. Wow. And that young man, when he spoke to her on the phone, said, they regret it. And she said, why? And that's what caused her to get off the subway to come and hear why we regret our abortion.
Yeah, sharing brokenness, sharing that brokenness, which you've done and continue to do so bravely, is a work that Silent No More Awareness is really all about. I mean, every year, and this year excluded because we're not on the Hill, so many incredible stories shared from brave young men, women and men, turning hearts and turning lives. Briefly tell us about the effects of these stories being told on young people.
Well, that brings to mind on another occasion, I was at a conference, and a young person, we were having lunch prior to the conference beginning, and I sat with this person, and she said, I heard you in grade 9, when I was in grade 9, and she was now at university, and she was part of the executive of the pro-life club at her university. And she said that if she had not heard the story of my experience of abortion, the route that took me toward death, and then my turnaround toward life, and that so much good has come out of telling the truth, going through the journey of healing, sharing that with others, walking with others to go through it. She said if she hadn't heard that story, she probably would not have chosen the path she had chosen. So that would be an example of how something that was intended, or something that was, quote, bad, turned around with the grace of God, can be used for good.
So Stephanie, what do you think about that powerful story Angelina told, and about her work? And is it fair to say that abortion hurts women?
It's absolutely fair to say that. I actually know Angelina personally, and I consider her one of the most inspiring women that I know. She has a deeply humble heart, a love for the Lord. And really what she is a living witness of is that God makes all things new, as we hear in the book of Revelation, that he will take our sin, he will take the mess we create, and he can redeem it, he can transform it. And I think that needs to be the takeaway for anyone who's had an abortion and regrets it, is to realize God forgives you and transforms you, and he wants to use even the terrible thing you've done and draw good from it. Now, that doesn't make the terrible thing good, but it makes God great, and it means he can bring good from the bad choices we've made, as Angelina articulated so powerfully.
Right. Now, in your case, Matt, you've probably heard a lot of Silent No More testimonials over the years on the Hill. Now, what kind of response do you get from the people who come to the march and hear these brave women speak out? And also the men.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the way that the march is set up usually, when we do have a physical march, there's a rally, there's a march, people march through the downtown streets of Ottawa, and they all return back to Parliament Hill, where the men and women of Silent No More then spend about an hour giving their witnesses. And I remember this one year, it's just a quick story. I was walking, I was about a block or two away from the stage. I was trying to put out some behind the scenes fires. And at that point, I heard a voice of a woman who was speaking and sharing her testimony. And now, first of all, I thought of two things. One, thank God to that technician who blasted the speakers so that everyone in downtown Ottawa could hear that message. And two, I was looking around and I saw people stop, people who are on their lunch break in the city, people who are walking to work, running their errands. They would stop and just listen to that voice of this woman sharing her deep regret, her sorrow, but also the journey of healing, the journey of God's love and mercy, and and the forgiveness that she was able to experience. So, I mean, just looking at those people, I thought, wow, you know, this message, we must believe that this message will touch the hearts of these people.
Right. Now, her story underscores the powerful witness these testimonies, as you mentioned, can give to people, especially young people. Now, Kevin, each year, are we seeing more and more young people come to the march?
Yeah, you know, young people, can I call us young people? Young people, they won't be duped anymore. And I interview many of them throughout the year and at the march. They just will not be duped anymore into believing, because they understand the science. They understand the false news, but they also understand the science. And when these women and men get up and share their brokenness, share their stories, it speaks right to the heart. I think of my own dear wife who shared her story on the Hill about meeting up with her birth son of 35 years. And this was a story she and I, you know, knew for many years, of course, just as husband and wife. But she came to that moment where she needed to share it. And it became such a healing moment. So healing that she ended up meeting her son 35 years later, her birth son, who I consider my own son, Patrick, now. And you know, it's in sharing these stories that young people are coming to know the truth about abortion and about all life issues. Josie Lutke from Campaign Life Coalition, who's done a lot of work on campus, a lot of work on street ministry. I had the opportunity to sit down with her and chat about her work and how these stories are affecting young people in Canada.
Good, let's go right to that then.
So Josie, you're not only youth coordinator for Campaign Life Coalition. You've had a lot of hands-on work with your time at university. Can you share with us maybe an experience during your pro-life work at your university?
Yes. One time we were going to have a pro-life activist come to speak on campus, and unfortunately we faced a lot of roadblocks in trying to have her come speak, roadblocks that other clubs wouldn't face, including...
Where were these roadblocks coming from?
They were coming from the university and the student union, unfortunately, and they just had a lot of last-minute demands in terms of purchasing security and so forth, and so we went ahead with the event anyway, but we were put on probation as a result of doing so.
So how many people would have come out to something like that?
The timing was unfortunate because the university ended up being closed that day for weather-related reasons, but we did have 20 people come out for it despite the closure. Potentially more had not been weather issues.
So is there fear? I mean, what's driving this this animosity towards pro-life groups on university campus?
I'm sure some of it's fear that they don't want to have the debate. They don't want to reflect on our culture and what it would mean if 100,000 innocent human beings were being unjustly killed every year, as is the case in Canada. I think that some of it's just hatred, intolerance, and so forth. And this is not just the abortion issue, but a lot of other controversial, politically incorrect issues that don't get debated in university, even though that's the exact location where they should be debated.
So why bother at all? Why bother at all for you? I mean, you have to go through all this and being called politically incorrect and all that, but as somebody on a university, what drives you to do this?
For the babies, for the one person who changes their mind. And sometimes it doesn't happen immediately. There was this one guy who I had a conversation with, didn't think much of, and then years later he showed up to our club meetings because he had become pro-life. And so sometimes it's just you're planting a pebble in someone's shoe, and they think about it and they think about it and then change their minds. And that's what makes it worth it.
Yeah, wow. And you've also spent time on the street actually doing street counseling?
Yes.
Can you share a story or two of someone that maybe changed their mind, came to a new understanding?
Yeah, same sort of thing where I had a conversation with a guy and he seemed like he was a moral relativist.
What does that mean?
Means that he didn't think that there were absolute rights and wrongs. Maybe he was kind of uncomfortable with abortion but wasn't going to condemn it. And it was the same sort of thing where he walked away. I either got him his email address and then I followed up with him, and he didn't respond to me immediately, but then he said that he'd read some of my columns that I write for the interim newspaper and then changed his mind, and that was that. So again, a lot of these conversations you'll have on the street with people, it's very rare where someone will change their mind right on that occasion. It does happen, but there are so many more instances where you just get people to think a little bit more.
Be not afraid. That's the theme that the March for Life has this year. You were probably part of the conversation that brought that theme forward. What does "be not afraid" mean to you, and what kind of message would you give to especially young people who might be watching?
Unfortunately, in our culture, a lot of young people are not pro-life, and so to those who are, be not afraid of being in the minority. Be not afraid of being ostracized or discriminated against, because you will face opposition. Be not afraid to stand up for the truth, because it is absolutely worth it, and that's what gives life meaning, is defending those who are weak and vulnerable. Be not afraid of being courageous enough to stand for those who have no one else to stand for them.
We're inspired by Josie, but Stephanie, I'm told also that you were one of her inspirations. Now, this is where things began for you as well as a young activist, I understand. What's it like on university campuses? Must be tough, and on the streets, and is this where we have to be?
It is challenging to speak out on university campuses. A lot of my pro-life activism was in my university days at UBC, and I faced a ton of censorship from my university, physical attacks on pro-life exhibits we did by fellow students. And so, like Josie was saying, we need to nonetheless press forward. We need to be not afraid to be part of the minority, knowing that if we take leadership, then eventually we will become the majority. But it takes a few courageous individuals stepping forward. So we absolutely need to engage, especially on college campuses where we're dealing with young people that are facing unplanned pregnancy. So that is our target audience. That is the marketplace of ideas. So we need to be willing to take the heat on ourselves in order to turn up the temperature and change society.
Right, and of course in those situations a lot of times pro-life speech isn't allowed too much. Matt, Josie touched on the freedom of speech in Canada and the impact there. Is that similar to what's happening in the States as well?
Yes, definitely. And in Canada, for example, our government has imposed, our liberal pro-abortion government has imposed, attestations to students and employers who want to receive job grant money for the summer student jobs for kids. They are denying grants and other things like that. We have abortion bubble zones, which are sweeping across the country. These are totalitarian laws which are not anti-speech, they are anti-pro-life speech. And that's the biggest problem, because pro-abortion people can hang out there and do whatever they want. Censorship on campuses is, like Stephanie mentioned, is still ongoing. And even there's a refusal to have an honest debate on abortion by our elected officials inside Canada's parliament. I absolutely love Pope Benedict's just recent commentary where he talks about this anti-Christian creed sweeping through the world. If you speak out against abortion, against euthanasia, well, then you are met with almost this type of social excommunication by peers, by the media, and sadly enough, even by some clergy who would prefer that you just kept quiet.
Yeah, sounds all too familiar. Now, Kevin, Josie talked a great deal about fear of standing up for life. It would seem fear, quote unquote, is also driving yet another threat to the sanctity of life in Canada, as you well know, euthanasia and assisted suicide.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it could get worse in our dear beloved country, the true north, strong and free. But in 2016, it did, when the Supreme Court overturned the law which criminalized assisted suicide. And since then, we've had 13,500 deaths due to what they call medical aid in dying. And last year, it kind of peaked in June. 5,400 people chose, if you will, if you can call it choosing, assisted dying. And it really, when we look at this, and we've looked at this all around the world, and we've studied it with the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition, giving these numbers, putting these numbers together. And what you find is that the number one reason why people are asking is not because of physical pain. Yes, there's times that you have to get the medication right, but it's not physical pain. It's actually fear of future suffering that's driving the requests. It's fear of becoming a burden. It's fear of losing my autonomy. It's fear, fear, fear. And so what we have to do, we have to overcome those fears, and we have to become prophets of hope, as I mentioned earlier in the program.
Right. Now, you, of course, and we mentioned earlier in the show, created two wonderful films on the subject, and both of them have proudly run on EWTN. Can you tell us about each one of them?
Yeah, very briefly, the Euthanasia Deception, Vulnerable, was a film. We went to Belgium, and it really opened our eyes as to, because, it really is ground zero, Belgium and the Netherlands, as to what was happening to society over time when this ideology grabs hold and takes root. And 20 years later, you see abortion for children, abortion on demand. You see all sorts of incremental expansions of the law. They say there's no slippery slope, but what really happens is incremental expansions, and that's what's happening here in Canada. The second film, Fatal Flaws, which aired on EWTN, Fatal Flaws, Legalizing Assisted Death, Netherlands, Canada, throughout the U.S., and we spent time in Belgium looking at these laws, and what you see are incremental expansions. You see fear driving the debate and a resistance to speaking about the truth.
Right. Seems like we go from the bunny hill right to the downhill very, very quickly all of a sudden. Let's take a look at that interview you did with Alex, the Executive Director and International Chair of the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition. Let's take a look at that.
So are we seeing abuse in Canada? Abuse of the law?
We have seen abuse of the law. Of course, we have seen quite a bit of that, but the problem is it's hard to gather and figure out because people have a very hard time talking about it. I received a phone call from someone in British Columbia. His aunt had died by euthanasia, and there was no medical diagnosis. She had a downturn, but she asked for medical aid in dying. All that is true. She asked for euthanasia. She died by euthanasia within 3 days because the doctor waived the 10-day waiting period, and yet there was no medical diagnosis. So when the nephew was contacting me, he was all upset, wanting to do something about it. And then when we actually got down to brass tacks about actually trying to do something about it, he said, well, no, my family's pretty upset with me now. You know, my family just says, you know, let's just not talk about it. I've got a lot of pressure on me. And you're getting these sort of phone calls because of the whole issue of, you know, my mother's died, my aunt's died, the death has happened, now the death has passed. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Right.
So it's been a very difficult situation getting stories.
Yeah. In Canada, they want to expand the law further. Was it Bill C7, I believe?
So where this whole idea of expansion of the law came from is, as I mentioned, that the Quebec court, wasn't the High Court either, funny enough, had struck down the natural death must be reasonably foreseeable part of the law, which was technically, as they said, terminal illness, but it didn't mean that at all. But by doing that, the government had to appeal the decision, and they didn't. So therefore, they're amending the law to reflect the court decision. But in doing so, they decided to do other things too. They decided to get rid of the quote, waiting period. They decided to also allow euthanasia for people who previously requested it. So someone who's incompetent, let's say they had Alzheimer's, or let's say they had a massive stroke and now they're incompetent. They can't say yes or no to euthanasia, but they had previously requested it. They would be then allowed to have euthanasia under this new law. So the idea is that...
And how quickly could something like that take place? So they had it there, they've got the document, now they're in that situation. How quickly could somebody make that decision, a doctor in collaboration with the family?
I don't know exactly how quick it could happen, and this is the difficulty. They might say that, oh, well, she's come to this point in health, so let's this weekend do it. And this is the kind of thing that you're going to be having. And you have the case in the Netherlands where the woman had resisted, right? The woman who had dementia, she resisted. They came to do the euthanasia, and she was saying no, 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 and she resisted, and they put the sedative in her coffee, and then she continued to resist, so they had the family hold her down as she was injected. Well, these are the kind of things you're talking about. You're talking
and what
about
happened? Did the doctor...
Well, the case was prosecuted, and it went to the courts, and the Supreme Court of the Netherlands has said it's fine. So what you have is a situation where the Supreme Court said, which is crazy enough, this is quite crazy, and this is where my fear is for where we're going here in Canada, is the woman wasn't capable of changing her mind, which is true. She was incompetent. So she's not capable of consenting or not consenting. So therefore the court said because she had previously requested it, therefore she was incapable of not saying no.
So let's zoom out a little bit. Before COVID-19, before all of the stuff that's got us here in this empty church, physically distanced, we already had a situation of loneliness,
right?
A pandemic of loneliness,
yes,
which was driving this need, if you will, for a self-chosen death, as they call it.
So we have this cultural problem already, and this is one of the reasons that euthanasia is being driven to the point where it is, because you have a fear of suffering, but you also have a cultural loneliness epidemic. Now, under COVID-19, we actually see this as being worse, because in fact, you're intentionally now separating families out. What even makes it even further sadness with this is you have, let's say, an elderly mother who's died in a nursing home, and no one was able to even visit her in her dying days, so this is then a real sad, hopeless feeling that's going on. But I've been reading in the data that there's been a lot of doctors who are doing euthanasia who are now saying, oh, well, we have to open up the rules even more because we're getting all these requests from people who are having fear of COVID-19 and they would like euthanasia.
This is legitimate.
This is legitimate. I was just reading about this, funny enough, yesterday, that you have euthanasia doctors talking about the law is too strict, and so we have people demanding or requesting euthanasia because of their situation.
Fear of future
we had
suffering, fear.
We had a case in Quebec. He was not dying yet, but because the court had given him the right to euthanasia, the court had said, in this case, because you don't qualify under the law, we're going to give you the right to euthanasia, as crazy as that might be. He decided to access euthanasia it was several weeks ago, even though he wasn't dying, even though he wasn't, because he said, with COVID-19, I have nothing. Right. And if you think about that, you would say, well, that's just one situation. Well, no, as I say, these euthanasia doctors are saying one of the reasons to expand the law is that we can't have a situation where people are not being able to get their made in these situations of hopelessness, in these situations. Yet at the same time, when you look at it, it's a cultural phenomena that needs to be dealt with, of this cultural abandonment and loneliness.
Seems like we're in a brave new world. Now, Stephanie, what do you think is really driving this issue now, this apparent quote-unquote need for assisted dying?
I think people have lost their will to live because they have not been properly taught how to find meaning in their suffering. And when it comes to this topic, I always think of the profound insights of Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist Dr. Viktor Frankl, who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. And one of the things Dr. Frankl said is that despair is suffering without meaning. Despair is suffering without meaning. And his whole point was that suffering is a part of the human experience. All of us universally will experience suffering. But whether or not we despair in light of suffering is entirely dependent on whether we can find meaning, not only in our suffering, but perhaps even because of it. Dr. Frankl cites an example of a teenager in Texas who became a quadriplegic, paralyzed from the neck down, couldn't move her limbs. And he said, let me tell you how she spends her days. She watches the news, reads the news, listens to the news. And whenever she comes across a story of someone who's going through suffering, hardship, perhaps a natural disaster and lost their home, whatever the issue is, she immediately calls for an assistant to come, to put a stick in her mouth, and then she uses the stick to pound out letters on a keyboard in order to compose notes of encouragement to the people she read about in the news. Now, that is someone who's not lost her will to live. That is someone who's not asking for assisted suicide. That's someone who's not despairing, and yet she's suffering. So what's the determining factor? She found meaning. She found meaning in her situation, and that has given her a will to live, and we need to help others do the same.
Right, and we need to be able to use EWTN and our methods to be able to get those stories out that no one will ever hear in the secular media. Now, Kevin, Bill C-7, what do the proposed expansions mean for Canada? What exactly is that?
Yeah, they promised us a review after 5 years. No review has taken place. In fact, it's already gone to this, again, as I mentioned, the incremental expansions of the law that this bill proposes. I'll try and make it, there's lots of words, but I'm going to try and make it simple to understand. I mean, basically, anybody, if this law goes through, if this bill goes through, anyone who considers their physical or psychological suffering to be intolerable, if you consider your physical or psychological suffering to be intolerable to qualify, you qualify for death by lethal injection, even if effective medical treatment exists. So people who need treatment and care don't get it. They get death. It's absolutely crazy. There's 5 points. It allows suicide for anyone with a disability. That's really what it comes down to, because it removes the requirement of the law that a person's natural death be reasonably foreseeable, which was already vague to begin with. It permits a doctor or nurse practitioner to lethally inject a person who is incapable of consenting if that person was previously approved. So basically, kill me later, even if I don't want it later.
Right.
He talked about that case in the Netherlands where the person who had dementia was resisting, but the family held her down, and they injected, and the Supreme Court said, oh, you know, it's okay. And so you've got this, and you've got what I call the "kill me on a bad day" clause, because they're taking away the 10-day waiting period, where if you make a decision you want assisted death, you have to wait 10 days. They're taking that away, so somebody could actually get it the same day. They're having a bad day. You've got a situation where you get some who get it now because of their terminal illness, but if you don't have a terminal illness, well, we're going to expand that waiting period to a longer time. So it's very, very vague. It basically waives the 10-day period when someone is deemed to be terminally ill. Therefore, a person And as somebody who's not terminally ill, they would have to wait 90 days before dying by lethal injection. It's crazy. The last one is it's very deceptive because they say it's not for people with mental illness, but it really is. It falsely claims it. I'll quote it here. The euthanasia law permits made for people who are physically and psychologically suffering that is intolerable to the person and that cannot be relieved in a way that the person considers acceptable. Mental illness, which is not defined in the law, is a form of physical suffering. So you've got all of these things, and I laud the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition for taking it and really breaking it down, because we are dealing with some very dangerous bills and laws.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And a father of an autistic child, I can tell you, that's pretty scary language. You know, in addition to that, there's the whole notion about conscientious objectors in the medical field, about the fact that they must refer their patients, I should say, to consenting doctors is unprecedented in the history of medicine. So now, Kevin, you had a chance to sit down with Dr. Ramona Coelho, right, a family physician, to discuss this matter. Let's take a look at that interview and what the issue is.
So Ramona, you're a family physician. I think a lot of viewers would probably be flabbergasted to hear what Ontario doctors have to face when it comes to conscience rights, on using their conscience to make decisions on life or death issues such as euthanasia, or what we call medical aid in dying. Is it as bad as they say?
It is as bad as they say. Our regulatory body, the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario, decided before euthanasia was legalized in 2016, they changed their human rights policy, and they said that for any conscience objector who feels that a service is not a good service, that they must participate by way of referral. And that is, to make that understandable, if a patient came to me who had a drug problem, like a problem with narcotics, and they were asking me for a morphine renewal, well, I would say no. If I said to them, no, I don't think this is good for you, but Joe down the road gives everyone narcotics, I'll send you there, and I'll actually arrange the appointment for you, well, everyone would say, that's being a bad doctor. But that's exactly what the college is asking us to do for medical aid in dying. They're asking us to say, I don't think this is good for you, but I will set up an appointment for this to happen for you, regardless of my feelings about this service.
That seems so like an antithesis to, I hearken back to Hippocrates, who I always say gave us the best safeguard at all. If someone were to ask for poison, euthanasia, he would say no. That was the original. I will give no poison. Yeah. And yet it seems we flipped 180 today.
That's the thing. Societies, cultures, they can make mistakes in their ethics. And having that plurality and diversity and freedom to practice our ethics is integral to medicine always serving the good. And so, like Hippocrates, his oath was created in a time when people did give people poisons to die. I have nothing left to offer you except death, and that must be better than this. And he said no. And our whole tradition is built on that beautiful kind of non-abandonment. This is not the end for you. We will find a creative solution for you. We will continue to look. And our society now has decided that, well, our legalization, I wouldn't say our society, but our government has decriminalized euthanasia, and the ethics have changed of some people. And to try to do that, to trump the traditional beliefs in such a way is just crazy, actually.
So what do you say to those people who say, okay, you're against it, other doctors are okay with it or are neutral on it, and just refer. Like, well, refer to another doctor, then, wipe your hands clean, if you will.
So I would say that when a patient comes to me, always vulnerable, there's always a power imbalance, right? I'm the one who kind of has the solutions to offer. But there is this kind of relationship of trust where they come vulnerable, but they're trusting me to only offer them the good. Would you ever want to go see your doctor and, entertain the thought that they didn't really care about your safety? They didn't really care about your life. What a horrible thought. Our relationship is built on trust, that I am always going to look for the best solution for you. So how could I say to somebody, like, well, go back to that drug addict who comes to me who wants their narcotics. This is something I deal with all the time. And if I said to them, I have something better, you know, there is an addiction counselor I can send you to. There is a center of rehab I can connect you with. There are medications that can help you with your cravings. And he says to me, no, I want my drugs. And I say, fine, I concede. I will arrange you to get your drugs at that. No one would think that that was good. No one would think that was good if they thought it through. And it's the same thing with medical aid in dying.
So, as a doctor, you put your life on the line every day for your patients, and even during COVID-19, even more so, of course, with protective gear and the appropriate measures. But you put your life on the line every day. And yet it seems a bit of a contradiction in terms when it comes to conscience rights. They're saying you don't have the opportunity to use your own conscience when it comes to this life-giving measure, when it comes to medical aid in dying.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I would say, you know, my husband is a surgeon. I'm a family doctor. We definitely are seeing people now, but we're seeing them willingly. I want to take care of my patients. I'm concerned for them during this pandemic. I want them to be safe. But I would say that for the government to understand, we're willing to put ourselves out there, but we actually can't do our best job. We actually cannot serve our patients' best interests if we don't have our conscience. Our conscience is the heart of everything we do and every good decision, ethical decision we make in medical care.
An interesting conundrum. Stephanie, are we putting doctors in a difficult position then by asking them to refer? And what does this end up meaning for the patient?
Absolutely. Society should not be asking doctors to refer for a procedure that, quite frankly, is bad medicine, is unethical. And so instead, we need to be really focusing on what healthcare is. If we think about those two words, health and care, health is to restore a body to its proper functioning. We never have doctors take a healthy body and maim it, but instead we have doctors find an unhealthy body and restore it, repair it. And what is care? Well, it's the opposite of harm. It's making sure people are sustained, that they are comforted. And so inflicting death on one's patient is going against the very nature of what health care ought to be. And as a result, the impact it has on patients is they will begin to wonder, can I trust my physician? If in a moment of weakness, I want to convey in how much pain I'm in by saying to my doctor, I want to die, will he actually take me seriously and literally, instead of saying, wait, I think the desire to die is like an iceberg. There is so much more underneath. Why are you saying that? What are those words really expressing, if you could put other words to it? And maybe the reason I want to die is because I feel lonely. I'm afraid of what could happen with this medical condition as it gets worse. I am in physical pain. But when we identify those things, then the whole nature of healthcare is to say, okay, how do I correct your pain? How do I give you the supports you need? How do I show you how we can manage your condition? But when we don't do that, when we offer death as a solution, which really it's offering killing as a solution, then that harms the nature of the medical profession, and it certainly harms the patients.
Exactly. Now, Kevin, in your film, Fatal Flaws, they weren't just referring people, they were actually suggesting euthanasia to a patient. Now, can you talk a little bit about that story of Candace Lewis?
Yeah, Candace, beautiful, young, 25-year-old, lived with cerebral palsy and spina bifida her whole life, in and out of hospitals. One very difficult night, she was very sick, went into the hospital, and a doctor came in, leaned down in her face, said, do you know how sick you are? You know, we have this new law, medical aid in dying, just want to let you know about it. Took mom out and said, Mom, you know, you're being selfish, you should consider this. It just totally blew the mom and blew Candace away. And said, no. Mom says, no. You know, like, why are you even suggesting? Why would you do that? And again, I don't criticize the doctor as much as I do what happens when we start to accept this as a form of treatment. And so Dr. William Toffler in Oregon, great speaker, he says, you know, if society deems this as necessary, it should happen outside the house of medicine, because as soon as it goes into the house of medicine, in some cases, some laws around the world, they're saying it has to be mentioned as a treatment option. And if we understand it correctly, most of the people who ask for this, certainly not in Canada's case, you didn't want this, ask for it because of fear of future suffering, losing my autonomy, and becoming a burden. Those are the three top reasons. Actual physical pain is way down here on the list. And every single palliative care specialist I've talked to throughout the world say they can manage every kind of physical pain. Might take a little while to get it under control, but they can manage it. The problem is access to proper pain management. Now, I just want to say one more thing about Candace. Candace just passed away naturally, had a natural death. And so we mourn the loss of Candace, but we salute her bravery because she came out and shared her story of brokenness. Her mom shared her story of being that prophet of hope, which I always talked about, that said, no, you doctors who think this is the way to go, it isn't. It should be outside of the house. It shouldn't even be brought up as part, as Stephanie says, as part of health care.
Right, exactly. I know a story. They had a situation where a doctor came in and talked to a woman and her daughter and said, would you like to have euthanasia or mercy killing? And the mother looked at the daughter, and the daughter said, it's up to you, Mom. And the mother said, okay, then I'll do it. And later said, well, obviously you didn't care enough about me to want to stop me. So I think sometimes we have to make sure that we're not being overly sensitive in the sense of saying, well, we don't want to interfere with Mom's wishes, when really what Mom's looking for is to know that you don't want her to do that. You want her to stay. Now, Matt, it seems we've entered obviously dangerous waters. Your comments on the whole medical aid in dying, especially in Canada.
Yeah, well, I mean, there isn't much to add to what Stephanie and Kevin said, but I will just say this in regards to this whole health pandemic that we're going through right now. It really has shown how upside down our culture is. On one hand, we're trying to protect the elderly and those with pre-existing health conditions, those who are most vulnerable to this disease, and yet we have a government at the same time who's trying to pass laws or to expand the law that make it even easier to kill these same vulnerable populations. Again, during this health crisis, you have mental health, which is a very top concern. Everyone's talking about it now. Suicide prevention hotlines are being promoted, as they should be. And yet at the same time, the governments want to force doctors to assist in these suicides. It's completely upside down. And all I can say is kudos to all the doctors and nurses, to Dr. Ramona, who are saying enough is enough. Our duty is to save lives, not end them.
Right. You know, many people around the world can look at Canada, the United States as some countries that have kind of gone off the rails on some of these issues, especially with the dignity of the human person. And while it must be difficult to be hopeful in these times, the desire to reestablish culture of life has never been stronger in a lot of ways, and we see it as a grassroots movement out there. In our final segment, believe it or not, we're getting to our final segment. Kevin asked each of our guests to comment on hope for the future. So let's take a look at that piece right now and find out, is there hope for the future?
I wake up every day thinking how bad it might have been if we weren't steadfast in our faith in God. I am a Catholic, and I know that Christ reigns. He does not appear to be reigning in our country. We have to let him reign, and my hope is that conversion will come about. We really can't, we can do everything politically. We can try, and there is a solution, there is a political solution, but it's not going to stick unless we have conversion. And we have to let Christ take the reins. We have to let Christ reign in that big building in Ottawa, and in every legislature in Canada, in every town hall, Christ must reign.
I'm seeing, honestly, lives changed from these babies that are brought into the world to these women. And often sadly, there's so many cases of rape that we're hearing about and things like that. And the babies truly do bring hope and healing to these women. So, I mean, every new life is so precious.
There is hope because there's forgiveness. I could ask forgiveness from the people whose lives were affected by the fact that I ended the life of my first child, that I lost fertility and future grandchildren, future nieces, nephews, cousins. I can ask forgiveness from the child who's living in the Lord. I can ultimately look in the mirror, and the person I see now is a person who's forgiven, who's loved. And ultimately, what is this life that we're looking for? The hope is that, you know, we pass through this world, we bring others with us toward life, and ultimately, as a Christian, as a Catholic, my goal is heaven, and to go there with as many people as I can. And the lives of the children that I lost through abortion, through contraception, through ectopic pregnancy were not in vain. Those children their stories have brought forth new life for others. And I would say that that's the end game.
There is hope because he has already won the battle for us. Life wins. The ending to this story has already been written. And so right now, it might not feel that way. There's plenty of times where it's going to feel like this is hopeless, but we have to remember that he has done all the work for him, and he's just asked us to be good and faithful servants, and we can do that. We can do our small part in this great long war that has been fought over centuries with different issues, and right now it's the abortion issue.
Yeah, I remember I was telling an older doctor my dilemma about this, and I thought I had to leave family medicine, and she's not even anti-euthanasia, but she said, all dumb rules die. Just give this some time, it will die. And so I am a believer that there's some misunderstanding here, there's some room for education here, and that there's still ability to move towards the good. And in the meantime, I'm resisting, right? I'm doing what I've always done, which is serve the good. I definitely educate my patients. They are aware. There's no kind of fooling them as to who I am and what I'm bringing to the table. But my patients stay, and many of them said, you know, they feel that I love them, and I do.
More and more people recognize that we need to be with others. We need to be caring for others. You know, people are not choosing lethal injection deaths because they are suffering so greatly. There's very few cases that have anything to do with that. Most people are dying by euthanasia or requesting euthanasia because they're alone, they're lonely, they're going through a difficult time, yes, but they are experiencing what we would call hopelessness. This feeling of hopelessness, which is a normal human reality. And what's the antidote to hopelessness? Love, care, being with. Now, during this cultural time of the COVID-19, call your mother, phone your friends. If all we can do is phone people and talk to them, please do it, because there's a lot of people who are wondering, is anybody going to talk to them at all? They can't get out, they can't go anywhere, no one's talking to them. It's a very difficult time.
Some powerful statements to think about. Now, as we wrap things up, it's your turn, panel. We'll talk to each one of you about what brings hope for the future in your mind. We'll start off with you, Stephanie.
Well, certainly we know that we are on the side of truth, and the truth prevails. So that is our reason for hope. And I'm someone who loves quotes, and near the beginning of my career, it was just as I was finishing up university in around 2000 or 2001, I came across a sermon by then Father Richard John Newhouse. He's now passed away, so the late Father Richard John Newhouse. And he made a statement in there about hope that has always stuck with me. And he said, hope is a virtue of having looked unblinkingly into all the reasons for despair, into all the reasons that would seem to falsify hope, and then to say, nonetheless, Christ is Lord. Nonetheless, this is the story of the world. And this is a story to which I will surrender myself day by day. And he said, not simply on one altar call, but instead is the entirety of one's life, in which every day is a laying of your life on the altar of the Lord Jesus Christ, being offered up in perfect sacrifice to the Father. Christ did that for us. He is our hope. And when we take up our cross and follow him, then we will see the world be transformed and his kingdom come on this earth.
Well said. Kevin, how about you? Your thoughts?
Yeah, that was beautifully said, Stephanie. It's hard to add to that. I think of the most commonly used phrase that Jesus uses in the New Testament. Be not afraid. I think is it 365 times I heard that. I could be wrong. Be not afraid. And so it's such a great thing to remember each and every day. That's why our ministry, is about prophets of hope, becoming a prophet of hope. I think of my grandma, Edna Kuntz. She used to say, they criticized her for having too many children and what if this happens or what if that? She said, children bring their love with them. Children bring their love with them. And I know as a father of 6 kids, that is what happens. We could fear about, well, what if we can't do this? What if we can't do that? We have a God who loves us, who has infinite love for us. Yes, we have to be reasonable. We have to use our heads. But in the end, it's truly, truly about love, about accepting that grace and letting that love exude from us through the Holy Spirit. Children bring their love with them, and it might even be 35 years later. I know I shared with you that story about Mary's birth son, my wife's son, Patrick. 35 years later, he's now a part of our family. Children bring their love with them. It might be a little delayed, but they do. I think about my daughter, Kathleen, and I had no idea she was doing this. Every week she was spending an hour with an elderly person in a nursing home. And she was playing Scrabble. And one day the elderly person took a newspaper article about medical aid in dying now being available in Canada, and pushed this towards Kathleen. And she said, "What do you think?" And Kathleen looked at her and said, she didn't know what to say. But she basically said, I would never abandon you like that. I love you, Maggie. I see the pictures on your wall. I'm part of your family now. Through this volunteer, you and I have a connection. I would never abandon you like that. I love you. And the old woman looked at Kathleen and said, "You really love me?" She said, "Yeah, I do." And she said, "Well, I guess that's good enough." And she pulled the article away, and they continued playing Scrabble. And she died a year later in her sleep, died naturally. And I think, wow, is it really that simple? Just becoming a prophet of hope, reaching out to those who need us. And then when I'm down, when I am feeling down, when I'm at my lowest, and I start to think about these laws because of my physical condition or about my pain, I have to reach out to those prophets of hope in my life who will give me the encouragement. And so I admonish and I ask any of you listening out there, especially in these times, become a prophet of hope. When this program ends, just pick up the phone, text someone, call them, speak that voice. And I think in that small way, we have hope for the future.
Right. Now, in your case, Matthew, let's talk in context of the movement itself. Is there hope in the movement itself?
Yes, definitely. I know that we've had our ups and downs over, well, really in Canada over 50 years now, ever since the floodgates to abortion on demand were opened by that horrendous law in 1969. But all I can say is this: the pro-life movement is a movement of hope. It is built on hope. We are an Easter people. We are people who defend life because we believe in eternal life. Mother Teresa once said that we are not called to be successful. We are called to be faithful. Be faithful to God, to the truth, and God will take care of the rest. Be not afraid, Canada.
Right. Amen. Thank you so much for that hope for the future. We leave it where we began today with, again, the meaning of the march, the theme, Be Not Afraid, and certainly be not afraid to proclaim the gospel of life. It's really all we have. And of course, I'd like to thank our panelists for joining us today and doing such a wonderful job international speaker and author Stephanie Gray. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Of course, the one and only filmmaker and international speaker, Kevin Dunn, who I owe so much for putting this wonderful program really together. Thank you so much, Kevin, as always.
Doug, it's a pleasure, and I'd be remiss if we didn't thank EWTN for your work in continually promoting a culture of life. It's an inspiration for all of us. So thank you to Doug and to the technical crew, Mark, and everybody back in Birmingham.
Absolutely, and keep Mother Angelica in your prayers. And of course, our March for Life organizer in Canada, Vice President of Campaign of Life Coalition, Matthew Wojciechowski. Matthew, thank you so much for spending your time here and also for all the great work you're doing all week long here in Canada.
Thank you so much, Doug. And I just want to echo Kevin's statements again, that just full appreciation for the good folks at EWTN for always being faithful to the March for Life and for always covering the Canadian National March for Life. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, panel. It's been great. Hopefully our audience appreciated it as much as I did. You know, EWTN is proud to bring you coverage each year of the National March for Life from Canada. It's our Canadian channel. We carry that and all the other March for Lives around the country. We bring them to you. You can always check it out on EWTN. It was very, very important to Mother Angelica. And of course, wherever we find you today, remember those words of our blessed Lord and Pope St. John Paul II, be not afraid. Mother Angelica said it all the time too. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the staff and crew here at EWTN. We'll see you next time.